Hey guys, this is Brian Shaw, and we are 4 weeks out from the Arnold Classic. This was an interesting week going in. The first thing I want to do is give a shout out to the Denver Broncos winning the Super Bowl. That was awesome, bringing it back to Colorado. And I know the strength coach for the Carolina Panthers, so House, I'm definitely sorry that you guys didn't do better there, and I'm always rooting for you too, man. But it was an interesting game. Defensive battle is fun, so hopefully you guys were able to check that out. And then as far as the rest of this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the order of the events at the contest. I'm going to cover a little bit of my diet and my recovery, and then I'm also going to talk about the weights going up in training. All right, so the event order for the contest has come out, and it's actually very interesting. There's a change. Typically, we've ended with the circus dumbbell or the sear dumbbell on the main stage, and this year it's going to end with the timber carry. So that's very interesting because obviously a lot of pressure gets put onto the last event, and that's magnified because that's the big pressure event when everything's on the line. So that's probably the biggest change. We're going to start the contest this year with the deadlift. So that's also a big change because typically in the past we've started with more of a pressing event. So out of the gate, we're going to do a max deadlift, and then that's going to be followed up by the Austrian oak or the log press. So that's day one. Day two is going to start then with the sear dumbbell for reps, followed by the bale tote or super yoke. Then we get a break, and then the last event, like I said, is going to be the timber carry. So it's going to be very interesting with this event order because I'm going to have to be careful with certain events about how much energy I want to pour out early in the contest, especially, on something like the deadlift, and then again on the log, and, coming into day two, you want to try to save as much as you can. But unfortunately, I don't think with the level of competition here that I'm going to be able to save very much, and it's going to be very interesting because all of these events, I think, are going to have to be 100% even on day one. So, hopefully, even with pouring out all of that energy, and I'm sure all of the guys are going to have to do that same thing. So it's going to make it interesting waking up on day two after doing max deadlift and a very heavy log press coming into day two. How fresh can we be? How much recovery can we get done? Coming into day two, and how fresh do we all feel? So the contest is going to be very interesting. And then, obviously doing an 1,100 pound frame on Saturday night after you've warmed up and cooled down and warmed up and cooled down, and then you have to get warmed up again that late at night. It's always a big challenge. And there's not a lot of contests that are done with the format of the Arnold. Typically you warm up, do your events, and you're done. It's not, doing events like that in the same day makes it very challenging to warm up, and especially for that big of a weight, because really the only time we'll touch it is when we walk out on stage. You won't really get to play with the frame. They'll obviously have a warm-up frame, but it's not going to be even close to the big timber carry. So, it's something where I'm going to need to be prepared for that and ready mentally to go do that on Saturday night, especially if there's going to be a lot of pressure, because if history has anything to say about it, it's probably going to come down to a point or two or half a point or even tied, going to the last event. So I've got to start wrapping my mind around these events, but it's going to be fun. I think it's a good change to have a different event last this time. So, it's just a change, but I should be ready for it. So this now is getting into the main nuts and bolts of my training cycle for the Arnold. So the weights are starting to increase on every event. And obviously when the weights increase, I get more and more beat up as the training goes on. So, you have to find that line of how hard you want to push without pushing too far, because obviously the worst thing that could happen possibly is to get injured in training. So I'm trying to find that line with being smart and pushing for, getting better, but not pushing too far. So I'm starting to definitely feel the grind. Body's feeling a little bit more beat up, but when that starts to happen, typically what we do is we make a diet change, and around this time my calories go up, so that helps with my recovery from all this heavy training. And then also what I do is I up my recovery work even more. So right now I'm going in, 4 days for treatment. And outside of that, I'm doing a lot of work on my own as well. A lot of contrast baths, a lot of soft tissue work, stretching, different joint mobility. I mean, there's so much different stuff that I'm doing right now. It's really a full-time, every single day of the week, there's something that I'm doing to try to get better and ready for this contest. So, those two things fit hand in hand with the nutrition and the recovery. And those are imperative as the weights go up and up when I'm getting ready for this contest. So we're going into probably the next couple weeks where these are going to be my heaviest weeks of training. So it needs to be even more magnified, that I'm even more focused on keeping my nutrition straight and keeping my recovery straight so that I can perform and recover and get the most I can out of these 2 weeks of training. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. This is the biggest challenge of the training cycle. Everything has led up to this point, and right now it's getting all of these really heavy events done and getting ready up to contest weights for this event it's very, very challenging. So I'm looking forward to it. This is the part that starts to get very exciting because all of the hard work now starts to pay off and it starts to show up in the training. So it's going to be very fun. It's a very not only physically but also mentally challenging couple weeks coming up. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. All right, so let's get into a couple of the questions that got asked under the video last week. One was about the 300-pound dumbbell and whether it would be a circus dumbbell or a Sear dumbbell replica. And from what I've been told, it's going to be a Sear dumbbell replica. So it's going to look exactly like the 274. It's just going to be slightly bigger. And I'm sure Rogue has that dialed in and it's going to come in right at 300 pounds. So it'll be another beautiful piece of equipment that we get to use. Obviously, it's going to be a big challenge, but hopefully that answers your question with that. The next question I have is from somebody that asks about how often I train strongman events and then how many strongman events I would throw into training on a given day. So this is a good question about training. I'm fortunate enough to have my own gym where I can throw in the events during the week if I want to, or on the weekend if I want to, and I can place them in different spots. And so it gives me a lot of variety with my training. A lot of people out there that maybe have to train in more of a normal gym and then go to do strongman events on the weekend wouldn't have that flexibility with their training. So what I do is, for example, here getting ready for the Arnold, I really fine tune my training to get as good as I possibly can with each event. So I throw in a couple of events during the week and I train them on the weekend as well. I would say that, as far as how many you should train on a given day, I've really found that, for me, if I go past training 3 events in one day, I really start to fade and don't put as much into each one as I would like. So I think that, if you are able to try to keep it at 2 or 3 events and really try to focus in on those 2 or 3 events to get the most out of your training. Because if you try to train, 4 or 5 events in one day, it's very hard to stay focused and very hard to put the effort into each and every single one of them. So hopefully that answers your question. That was a great one. Thank you for asking that. All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap the video up there. Like I said, 4 weeks out, things are starting to get very exciting. And, everybody, I'm sure all the guys are working really hard and this is going to be a great event. I mean, it's going to be super competitive and it's very hard. Right now it's very hard to guess what's going to happen. So, I'm excited to be a part of it. And, I'm going to keep working extremely hard here to be ready for the Arnold. Definitely appreciate you asking questions and checking out the video. Post any questions that you have, post them up and I'll see if I can get them answered in the coming weeks here. And keep training hard.